ability and how everyone has ability. And I will show you how this discovery leads to success in life and business once I've demonstrated to you that this is a great tool for your brand. When one thinks of ability, images of superheroes and mutants and wizards and anime and gaming characters typically pop to mind. This is in part because in contemporary culture, which is inundated with supernormal stimuli and supernormal creatures with various abilities, we don't think of your everyday bloke to have abilities. In fact, we have completely lost sight of that, which is why so many escape into becoming these avatars in order to feel as if for the first time that their mirror neurons are being fired away, that they possess these qualities. But once the game, the show, the comic, the dress-up, the film, and the fantasy are over, most are mired in depression and anxiety at how lackluster their lives have become and how humdrum their existence is and how frightfully inadequate they are. But nothing could be further from the truth. As an inspiration, allow me to introduce you to my newest hero, Boyan Slat. A Dutch high school dropout, when he was a teenager, he conceived of a giant floating vessel designed to suck up the garbage in the ocean. 4 years later, he has millions in funding, his prototype has passed all its tests, and now it is out at sea, preparing its approach to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And he now expects to collect 50% of total plastic trash in just 5 years. His machine is simply called System 001, and his organization, Ocean Cleanup, fully funded at over $320 million from what started as a TED Talk about his idea when he was just 17. He is commonly referred to as a boy genius, but is he? Hardly. He came from a typical home of divorced parents, an only child, and he started building things as a kid, and it grew from there. And here is the crux of today's tool, ability. Find what interests you, which part of that you are innately good at, and build from there until you achieve your personal greatness. Perhaps Boyan's mother's ability was to recognize ability in her child and offer him all of the resources he needed to develop it and the unwavering commitment and support to follow the dreams that came from his confidence due to his ability. Now, how to find yours if you are an adult and you did not have parents like that, because they too did not have parents like that, because somewhere along the line they were all told that ability is defined by the size of your bank account. Start looking now for your true ability. It is never too late. A great start are the books Unique Ability, Creating the Life You Want, and Unique Ability 2.0, Discovery, Define Your Best Self by Catherine Nomura, Julia Waller, and Shannon Waller, designed to offer you exercises, thought processes to develop your awareness as to what your unique ability is, and then provide you with the coaching to take these lessons out into reality and begin applying them. And you can find the links to all of these scholarly books as well as all the peer-reviewed articles we discuss on YouInc on WCBE.org, as well as full podcasts of all our episodes on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, as well as YouInc Radio, or just visit us at tworogues.com, and that's the number 2 and the word rogues.com. Have a tool you wield especially well or know someone that does to be a guest on our show? Drop us a line. Have a question about emotional intelligence for me? Leave us a message. You can also find us at our studios, NPR member station 90.5 at WCB.org, and we are also now on PRX, Public Radio Exchange. I would be remiss if I didn't caution you that this new path you are choosing for your true self will be met with fear, vulnerability, failure, and even criticism. Why would anyone be critical of those that are brave enough to follow their ability, their passion, their gift? Is it because we haven't proven ourselves? Absolutely not. Young Boyan, now CEO of his own company, Ocean Cleanup, at 24, receives tons of criticism. The reasons for this are too many for this show, so let us focus instead on how to overcome some of these obstacles. The book, Rising Strong, How the Ability to Reset Transforms the Way We Live, Love, Parent, and Lead by Brene Brown offers offers us the 10 guideposts for wholehearted living. First, cultivate authenticity. Let go of what people think. 2, cultivate self-compassion. Let go of perfectionism. 3, create a resilient spirit. Let go of numbing and powerlessness. 4, cultivate gratitude and joy. Let go of scarcity and fear of the dark. 5, cultivate intuition. Let go of the need for certainty. 6, cultivate creativity. Let go of comparison. 7, cultivate play and rest. Let go of exhaustion as a status symbol and productivity as self-worth. 8, cultivate calm and stillness. Let go of anxiety as a lifestyle. 9, cultivate meaningful work. Let go of self-doubt and supposed to's. And finally, cultivate laughter, song, and dance. Let go of being cool and always in control. Gnothi Sefton, or know thyself. And that is a 2,000-year-old quote and a bit of advice from the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates, indicating that the secret to happiness is knowing who you truly are. Today's guest is a musician, singer, songwriter, and teacher, creating music and teaching people of all ages since 1983. Her goal in both her performances and teaching is to invite audiences and students to share a sense of creating community through singing and playing together. And you have probably seen her. Joanie Calem has played everywhere, from your local libraries to the Columbus Symphony Orchestra. Her current passion is concert conversations and workshops for parents, teachers, librarians, community groups, and schools, sharing original songs as starting points for discussions on how to build welcoming communities that allow room for the increasing neurodiversity in our world. She is also an accomplished author of multiple children's books. When Ms. Calem isn't touring the city, playing music to help people recognize invisible disability and create more compassion, this folk musician, well, is still playing music every chance she gets. She's also married with 2 lovely children. Welcome, Ms. Calem.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first question is the last thing that I mentioned in your bio, that you are always somewhere playing music. And I know personally I have seen you at kids' play spaces, parties, festivals. You really do play music 24/7, right?
No, I sleep sometimes.
Okay, all right. But I mean, that's something that you were just you leave the house with your guitar, which you've also brought to the studio today. You have it with you all the time, and you just break it out at all opportunities.
Well, that makes me sound like a pushy.
No.
No, I break it out when I'm invited to break it out.
Okay. Good point. Okay, so our topic today is about ability. So was this an ability that you had when you were a child, and how did you cultivate it? Or did you have parents, like the example that we gave earlier of the boy genius, who helped you cultivate this ability?
No.
Okay, all right.
My parents are both passed away now, and I love them both dearly. But no, they did not encourage me to cultivate my musicality.
Okay.
I have a cousin who's about 20 years older than me, who was a piano prodigy. And I remember sitting in their house listening to him play the piano and just being amazed at the sounds he could produce. And turning around to my mother at the age of 5 saying, I want a piano. I want to play the piano. She said, no, it's too expensive. We don't have room. I don't know where we'd get one. And this went on for 2 years. And then when I was 7, I had saved up my allowance, and I had $5. And my mother was helping at an auction. So I went with her, and there was this piano that was going to be auctioned off.
Wow.
And I just felt like my heart was going to explode. And so I just sat there very tensely, waiting for this piano to come on. And my mom was in a back room someplace doing organizational stuff. And they brought up the piano, and I went, 25 cents. And the whole room exploded in laughter, of course. And so some guy said 50. And I was like, 75, $1. And it went back and forth, and he kept, and when we got to $4.75, I burst out crying because I knew enough math to know that that was it. I wasn't going to get it if he kept bidding against me. So everybody was like, whoa, 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 what happened? I said, I only have $5 and I want this piano. And so he obviously stopped bidding.
Oh, good.
And I got this piano for $4.75.
Wow.
It was a terrible piano. I mean, I didn't know that. My parents didn't know that. But I went to the back room and I kind of pulled on my mom's dress and I said, I just bought a piano. And so, of course, they paid to move it home. And, and that was like, oh, she's really serious.
Oh, wow.
She bought her own piano. I think we better get her lessons.
So though initially they didn't, but they saw that the fortitude that you had, and then after that, I mean, they easily could have said, what are you going to do with this piano? It's a piece of junk. They could have.
Right, absolutely.
But they did pay to move it.
They did.
And then they paid to give you
more expensive to pay to move it than to buy the piano.
I'm sure. So I guess what a great lesson here when we think about ability and we think about your example and we think about the example that we mentioned earlier is, parents, a great way to find out what their children's ability is to really just pay attention.
Yes.
And just to leave that open, to get them exposed.
Exactly.
Like you may not have known if you hadn't been exposed to your cousin. And then when they do show that initiative, to support that to wherever it goes.
Absolutely.
That's a great story. I love it. Okay, so one of the books that you have written is teaching Hebrew words through song. And in fact, even when children are learning about states or spelling of Mississippi, I remember from a kid, Mississippi, for example, we're taught to memorize them with song. So what is it about music that unlocks our ability for language, and what can parents who are not musically inclined do about that?
Well, first of all, music is a whole brain thing. Everybody's talking about right brain, left brain. Music is always using both parts of the brain. So, there's a lot of conversation with educators about, is a person left brain, is a person right brain, where are their strengths? But when you're doing something with music, it's using whatever strengths you have, wherever they are, and pulling that all together. So you don't have to worry about, is somebody musical, is somebody mathematical, because through the music, it's going to pull all those different things. So that's just kind of the theory behind, music is a whole brain activity.
Okay.
They've got all the studies
activates all
now.
The neural pathways.
It activates everything on both sides. They've got all the studies where they've got people hooked up and they're looking at what's going on while they're singing, while they're listening, and stuff is lighting up all over the place. So that's, kind of the beauty of music that has nothing to do with
ability per se.
Exactly.
Right. Everyone has the ability to listen and connect with music. So that's an innate ability we all have to some degree.
Right. And there's so many different genres of music. So one of the things I'm doing now that isn't in my bio because I haven't updated my website is I do song evenings for people with history of homelessness through addiction or poverty or mental illness or a combination of all those things. And so I just come, and initially I came and I was just singing some of my stuff and doing some old folk songs, but then it was like, so what do you guys like to sing? And we put together a book of, like 100 songs from the 1920s on, and we go through that song, we pull out what people are in the mood for. Now, I'm not a musician who usually plays covers, but here, these are the things that communicate to people. And so, why not? Why not provide somebody with a song that touches something somewhere, some good memory somewhere that just makes your whole being feel good.
Right. And so, as you mentioned your website, so do government organizations come to you, or is it private, entities that come to you and ask you to come to do these, or is this something you do on a volunteer basis?
Well, this is actually through CHN.
Okay.
And it happened in one of these,
And for people who don't know, Columbus Housing Network.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
This happened through one of these roundabout Columbus networking.
Okay.
A friend started working there and suggested that I could come do this. And it's the kind of thing where if we could, I hate doing research. But if we could get someone interested in doing research about what happens to people when they get together and they sing once a week, um, it's there's been some really cool things happening.
And I know that they use it also. People have Alzheimer's. When they play music, they're able to recall a lot of their
absolutely.
memories. So it's like that whole brain activation that you were talking
That's
about.
another thing that's probably not on my website. I do a weekly intergenerational song gathering at one of the retirement homes. And most of the seniors, most of the retirement home residents that come are kind of right on the edge of dementia. They're like, they're still living independently, but it's a little rough. And they, first of all, they love seeing the kids. They just love being in a room with kids instead of just old people.
Yeah.
And I mean, the whole building just lights up with the kids' laughter and singing and dancing. But also, they might not remember what day it is, but they remember every word to "In the Good Old Summertime."
That long-term memory.
I mean, those songs.
That long-term memory,
Yeah.
So, since you mentioned your website, this is what I told yesterday's guest too, who's also updating their website. We're always updating our website.
I know.
This isn't going to air for another 2 or 3 months.
Oh, cool.
So feel free to tell everyone what your URL is right now. Like, where can people go to find out about these events? Because you have until January to get this together.
Okay, cool. It's real simple. It's www.joaniecalem.com.
And Joanie
Calem sounds like it should be a K, but it's not. Calem.
Okay, thank you. That's great. All right. So you also foster inclusion with your teacher trainings. Hold on a second. Sorry. No, I skipped ahead. Sorry, Greg. I'm going to go back a little bit. Speaking of Hebrew, you demonstrate a strong faith in Judaism, and not just in song, but many of your writings. And in an article earlier this year in the New York Jewish Week, you are quoted as saying, "It seems that the most important tenet in Judaism is to treat others the way we want to be treated, regardless of whether or not they are similar to us, speak like us, have the same interests, dress like us, or can do the things that we can do. Inclusion and acceptance are the very fiber of Judaism. As we would like others to extend themselves to us, we must extend ourselves to another." And you said this in response to the sentiment that Jewish communities have not been as inclusive and that it needs to be examined where changes in approach to inclusion can be made. So tell me some of these approach changes to help the Jewish community develop that ability for embracing all of its members.
Well, I don't think that this is something that's specific only to the Jewish community, but because that article was written for a Jewish newspaper, I was, of course, very much focusing on that. But I think in general, human beings have an expectation of conformity where it comes to clothing, where it comes to presentation, but also where it comes to social norms. At a certain, kids will be kids. There's the old program, I think it was from the 60s, of, kids say the darndest things. And it was all these jokes about the things that children would say, and that was funny and that was acceptable. But at a certain age, children are expected to know what's okay to say and what's not okay to say. And I have one song that I wrote that's called Social Cues Blues, because a big part of people with neurological differences is that they don't get these unspoken social cues. And then they're walking around making faux pas after faux pas. I don't even know what the English word for that would be. And feeling social gaffe, there you go. And feeling terrible, always feeling like they just can't remember what it is they're supposed to do. And at least in Western culture, no one tells them. No one kind of spells it out. Hey, in this context, it's not cool to be burping out loud. Whatever the social gaffe was. But people stand there judging. And, what actually ends up happening for judging, I always talk about, I think because I lived in different parts of the world, I am very aware that not everybody speaks a language fluently, but that doesn't matter. They can still communicate, even if their grammar isn't 100% correct. So when I hear someone with either a different accent or that feels like they're not quite comfortable in speech, maybe because they speak another language, maybe because they have a neurological difference in their brain wiring. So I lean in to kind of listen a little more carefully, to listen outside the box, quote unquote. But what most people I find do is they step away and they move away because it makes them uncomfortable. Because there's something that they can't identify. Because they don't know what it is that's different, but they are afraid.
And they don't want to do something that they think that's going to make it worse or offend the person. And in reality, that pulling away is what hurts the most.
And it's really interesting. Whenever I say this, the other person in the conversation always says, well, yeah, and people don't want to offend. And that's really gracious of you. I don't give it that much. I think people don't want to have the conversation. They're uncomfortable.
Could be.
So yes, I would love to give people the benefit of the doubt and say they don't want to offend.
I don't want to deal with this, right? It's not like, oh, I don't want to hurt their feelings. It's more like, I don't want to deal. Yeah. It could be. And, you know, I mean, we even see this with individuals who are peers who in the workplace, I mean, they don't even know to read social cues. I mean, we've lost a lot of that connectivity with each other, that empathy, that ability to read a lot of those social cues and to have those tough conversations. People really do want to just avoid. That's true. That's very true. So you also foster inclusion with your teacher trainings on disability awareness at But First Do No Harm. And what you do is described in this way, and I quote, while everyone theoretically knows what autism and other learning differences are, actually integrating students with different neurological wiring into general classrooms poses a challenge for any teacher. Instead of lecturing on this topic, I am singing and telling stories about creating inclusive communities and classrooms. So this kind of piggybacks on the previous question, just singing to these teachers, because that's what you're doing, right? And getting them involved in music, in this way create a different learning experience for them in regards to working with students with different abilities.
Oh, absolutely. Because again, like anyone else, I mean, a teacher's got a human brain. So for them, the same thing. If information is going in through a song, it touches a different place. You know, I like to say, instead of using PowerPoints and statistics, although I do give a few statistics, but I don't usually use a PowerPoint except when I have to. But you know, instead of using a PowerPoint and statistics, I'm presenting the picture of what neurological difference looks like in a classroom. And I've written some specific songs. You know, I mentioned the social cues blues, but I have another song that's specifically about sensory processing disorder. And sensory processing disorder, here's my statistic. 1 in 52. But sensory processing disorder is 1 in 6.
Wow.
So you have a lot of children in any classroom, in any context, not just children. You have a lot of individuals who have, and I'll explain what sensory processing disorder is. You have a difficulty processing through one or more of your senses. So that's a lot of children. And the 1 in 6 is considered children that have the disability to the degree that it gets in their way of their comfortable learning in a typical classroom. But they don't have the diagnosis of autism. They often don't have any other diagnosis, and that's got to do with
parent stigma.
Well, or not even. I mean, first of all, I think a lot. Here's where I'm magnanimous. As a teacher, I knew about children before I had children. I had studied child development. I had years of experience in a classroom. I knew kids. So when my kids came along, you know, my first kid was chugging along doing her thing, just like any other kid, and my second kid wasn't. So it didn't take me getting to a doctor to be aware of the fact that, okay, something's different here. I didn't initially say autism for all kinds of other reasons, but I knew something was different with him. And but a lot of people don't know. So people who aren't educators, who don't have experience with kids, who are professionals working only with adults, who only see children at family gatherings and they don't hang out with the kids, they don't actually know what typical development is.
Yeah.
So when their kids are, you know, having a screaming meltdown every morning because they don't want to get dressed in this beautiful outfit that mom has chosen to put on them, you know, so if a kid is telling me, I can't put on that jacket, maybe they're spoiled. That's possible. Maybe there's a reason they can't put on that jacket.
So I got the PowerPoint. Do I get the song now?
Yes.
Okay. What are you gonna play for us today?
I was like, what? You got the PowerPoint? How'd you do that?
Well, because you gave us the statistic.
Right.
So I imagine that was on your PowerPoint.
Okay, cool.
So now I'm hoping we'll get the song.
This is called You Have No Idea. This is specifically about sensory processing disorder. And these are messages that my son has given me over the years. He doesn't speak in rhyme, so I did arrange it into a song.
Okay.
I have many people come up to me afterwards and say, has he written other songs? I'm like, no. But this is called You Have No Idea.
Okay.
Sometimes I just can't calm down. My skin is on fire, my brain's whirling round. Moving makes it better, but I know that bothers you. I need some help, I don't know what to do. I know it seems strange when I stare at the floor. If I look in your eyes, I can't hear anymore. In order to listen, I've gotta look away. Not all the time, but it's really bad today. Well, you have no idea what it's like to be me. No idea how hard it can be. No idea how I long to be free. You have no idea what it's like to be me. I know you get embarrassed when we're out and about. Noise and crowds scare me, but I don't mean to shout. I know you spent a lot on my nice new shirt. I can't put it on, it makes my body hurt. And you have no idea what it's like to be me. No idea how hard it can be. No idea how I long to be free. You have no idea what it's like to be me. I know you worked real hard to make this good food. The smell hurts my head, I don't mean to be rude. I don't mean to misbehave, I don't mean to get mad. I'm so sorry, I don't want you to be sad. Well, teacher says I'm spoiled. Grandpa says I just need rules. Grandma says in her time I wouldn't dare do what I do. But they don't understand what it's like inside of me, 'cause bad behavior is all that they see. And they have no idea what it's like to be me. No idea how hard it can be. No idea how I long to be free. They have no idea what it's like to be me. And you have no idea what it's like to be me. No idea how hard it can be. No idea how I long to be free. You have no idea what it's like to be me.
That's great. I mean, that's great. And you know, it's just the idea of enlightening people to really consider that internal world and the messages, the way that they're conveyed. It just makes a connection, you know, very clearly that the behavior has a very real, valid reason. And it's not just meant to make you angry or make you sad or embarrass you. It's because my head hurts to smell this, you know, I can't hear your words unless I look down. That's great. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad, I'm sure everyone here also enjoyed it, and they can get this music if they want from your website.
From my website, that particular song is on a CD that came out in October of 2018.
It just came out.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. That's where we are right now. Okay, so, perfect. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's on the CD called Apples from Their Trees.
Okay.
As in, people always say apples don't fall far from their trees, but sometimes they do. Right,
they do.
And just a word of disclaimer about sensory processing disorder. I am not an occupational therapist. I'm not a trained occupational therapist. My understanding of sensory processing disorder has come from the studying that I've had to do as a mother, but also as a classroom teacher. And I think because I was a mother of someone with severe sensory processing disorder, I could identify when my students were rolling into class with some of those things that were not quite as severe as my son's.
Yeah.
So, the teacher training that I do is very practical solutions of, if you see this behavior, please don't jump to, this is just an obstinate kid that doesn't know how to behave, they're just spoiled, they're just this, they're just that, which I totally understand as a teacher. When you've got 30 kids and they're all going in 30 different directions, it's really hard.
It is.
But my handout in my workshop is all about ways to make classrooms more sensory friendly. And the basic premise is, if we make a classroom more sensory friendly, it's helpful for everyone, whether they have a sensory difficulty or not.
Right.
But I'm not an OT. I do not diagnose.
But your experience and also personally and professionally being in these environments have created this ability for you to have this awareness and then to share that message, and you're using it through your other ability songs. So it's a perfect marriage.
Right, and one of the things that I find I'm able to do, for instance, with, I do a lot of performances for public, and, when I walk into a performance space where there are children, there's always going to be one kid, and it's radio, so you can't see me.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be one kid with their hands over their ears. So for me, that's right away. That's communication.
That's a sign. Yeah.
So
the behavior is right.
The behavior is a communication. So I walk up to that child and I say, well, I won't be loud. Would you be my sound engineer? Here, let's turn on my amp, and you tell me, is this okay? And I start it really low, and then I turn it up a little bit, and and so they can actually have some input into what is going to make them feel safe in that space.
And that control also helps and then also just that gradual kind of leaning into it also allows them to kind of acclimate, because maybe that's just need more time to acclimate to it.
Right.
So in one of your blog posts and also here today, you're very open about your struggles with your son, who has autism, as you mentioned. So is it autism or sensory? Like, what would be the difference there? That are these interchangeable terms?
No, they're not interchangeable, but I believe, and from everything with everyone I've spoken to who, have all kinds of degrees in autism, I believe that 99.999% of people on the autism spectrum also have sensory processing disorder to some degree.
Okay, so they can show up together, like we talk about compassion fatigue, which is a secondary trauma, can show up with PTSD.
Yes.
But they can also be separate. Okay. So as a mother of a child, with these two situations, you had talked about, and this is what you wrote. So I'm going to say what you wrote here. As a mother of a child with autism, I spent many years praying for a miracle. At first, I prayed that one day my son would just miraculously wake up and feel better, that his dis-ease in the world would just be a temporary thing that we could chalk up to a rough beginning. When that didn't pan out, I prayed for a cure. While there are certainly families that have tried numerous medical and health interventions that we haven't tried, we did chase lots of different therapies down in our hope for a miraculous cure. None did the trick, but one very smart practitioner said to me, "You are looking for one key. There isn't one key to unlock everything, but everything that you are doing will help a bit. while that perspective was helpful in some ways, I noticed that I had now expanded my desire from wanting just one miracle to wanting all of the miracles that would help. My son is now 23. He is a talented artist. He struggles with a lot of things, but he has also far exceeded the fears that were propelling my need for a miracle. So the question is, for those parents whose child is 3 and not 23, and who are at the point where you were, what have you learned over time in order to assist them in their ability to be a parent of a child with a disability? And what can they do to support their child's growth in their own personal capabilities in finding their path in life?
So interesting that you ask that, because at many workshops that I do for parents, the parents do have children that are much younger. And one thing that I noticed, so the CD that's coming out now is my second CD about this topic. And the first CD came out about 5 years ago, and the material's very different. I was much more fearful. So I was praying for a miracle, and maybe my nature is to be optimistic and hopeful. So I was still always hopeful, but I was scared. Because I was scared of what his future looked like. And now, it's not as though his future is certain. I mean, nobody's future is certain.
Yep, that's true.
My neurotypical daughter's future is not certain.
Right.
No one's future is certain, but he is so tenacious. And I mean, I have such respect for this human being who happens to be my son. Life is not easy. There are people with autism who are very happy that they have autism, and they accept it, and they're not struggling, and this is just the way I am, and you got to deal with it. My son's not like that.
Okay.
He is not happy about it, but he gets up every morning, and he goes back out into the world, and he keeps on pushing, and he keeps on growing, and he keeps on changing. And to me, that is like, maybe that's the miracle. Maybe that's because, he's an adult now. I can't get in there and do everything for him. He's out in the world, and he's reaping the consequences of mistakes that he makes, and but he's also reaping the consequences of his perseverance.
Okay.
And so you asked, what do I say to parents? First of all, I totally understand the fear and the exhaustion, and I say be kind to yourselves, and give yourself some self-help in whatever form that takes. You got to take time for yourself. I probably didn't do that enough, and I know everybody's always telling you that, but really, really, really do it. But also, behaviors communication. So really look at your kid. Your kid's different than you, but what draws them? Like, my son always drew pictures, always. And he was always passionate about drawing pictures. And his art teachers in whatever educational context he was in were always like, whoa, this kid's got something. So there was always this part of him that was kind of directing. And I honestly feel that, first of all, the thing with autism you can't generalize. There's this other saying, you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And there's very little, there may be some symptomology that is common, but what actually works for a person is going to be very different. But that's the thing, pay attention. So if your kid, you throw this big family party for your kid for their birthday because you want all the relatives there to celebrate, and your kid spends the whole time screaming because they hate crowds and noise and surprises. So pay attention, so pay attention to the things that your kid gravitates to,
Mhm.
but also pay attention to the things that your kid is showing you are hard for them.
Mhm.
Don't assume they're spoiled. Don't assume they're obstinate. You know, try and look for patterns. You know, so if a certain kind of restaurant always turns out to be a disaster, maybe it's the acoustics
Yeah, yeah.
in that restaurant. You know, so try a different kind of place with
Right.
different acoustics.
Right.
You know,
Don't try to change a child. Listen to the behavior and then try to create an environment where they can feel safe and they can start to explore their own abilities, basically.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Last question.
Yeah.
You recently gave your home a new ability, and if you don't mind, perhaps you can share how that's going. You installed solar panels on your roof.
Where did you get that
I'm
information?
good at my research. You installed solar panels on your roof almost a year ago. How's that working out?
It's great.
Yeah?
It's amazing.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Totally do it?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, you know, and I hate to, like, you know, with global climate change, with
Mhm.
everything's getting hotter,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be more sun.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we generated electricity through the entire summer. We did not use.
Really?
Yeah, so we're pouring electric. The way it is in Ohio is
Uh-huh.
you have to be connected to the grid.
Uh-huh.
So we're pouring energy back into the grid.
But
from
you don't get a kickback.
No.
That's
We
there.
just, yeah, it's
So just like, we'll come over to your house and start plugging in stuff.
right.
Put out a public charging station.
I know,
There you
it's
go.
true. It's true.
Can you fill up batteries with it?
No, not yet. I
Okay.
mean, there are ways to do it.
Get
We
an electric car.
No, we didn't put that in yet.
Okay, all
But
right.
like, you know, I woke up this morning saying to my husband, like, you know, we gotta expand on
Yeah,
this
we gotta do
somehow.
something. We gotta do something with that. Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool though.
Okay, so everyone, please make sure you check out JoanieCalem.com. Thank you so much for sharing that song and this great message about ability in all of its forms. Thank you for coming on Ewing today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yay.